Chapter 22. The Great Awakening. It is a bitter moment for Israel. It had taken decades of sacrifice and joyful labor to build their tiny nation. They had seen it preserved through miracle upon miracle from the very first day of its existence. The prosperous homeland the Jews had forged from rocky soil and immigrant blood had been fueled by hope. No, desperation, for this was understood to be their race's last and only chance for long-term survival in a world that irrationally and universally hated them. Less than a year before, their historic foe, Dar al-Islam, had been slain by the tens of millions upon their hills in a deliverance that only a fool or a blind man could have attributed to the hand of chance or the arm of man. But now, only now, when they as a nation are awakening as from a coma to the reality of their God, a horrible alternate reality is coming into focus. They must flee. Their greatest king, David, had seen it all 3 millennia before this, but no one understood his words until now.
I would hasten my escape from the windy storm and tempest. Destroy, O Yahweh, and divide their tongues, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go around it, on its walls. Iniquity and trouble are also in the midst of it. Destruction is in its midst. Oppression and deceit do not depart from its streets.
David prays that as in the days of the Tower of Babel, no one would comprehend the sinister speech of those who now trouble Jerusalem. Israelis have weathered storms before, but this tempest is different. It has been conjured up by Satan's minion and his false prophet, all the more destructive because they had come pretending to be Israel's friend.
For it is not an enemy who reproaches me, then I could bear it. Nor is it one who hates me, who has exalted himself against me, then I could hide from him. But it was you, a man my equal, my companion, and my acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together, and talked to the house of God in the throng.
Yes, the Antichrist and his prophet had played the part of Israel's protectors. They supported the reinstitution of temple worship, or seemed to, when the weight of the world's opinion would gladly have let the Jews go to hell. Like Judas Iscariot before them, their betrayal is all the harder to bear because of their close but feigned relationship with God's chosen. But their true colors have now been raised. With friends like this, who needs enemas? The Antichrist has demanded to be worshipped in Yahweh's stead, sitting in the Holy of Holies as if he were God himself, the ultimate blasphemy, the abomination that causes desolation.
Let death seize them, let them go down alive into Sheol, for wickedness is in their dwellings and among them.
Death, he says, is too good for them. It seems a strange thing to pray for, but as we shall see in Revelation 19:20, David's request will be granted, literally, even though few in history have ever suffered this horrible fate. There was one guy, Korah, back in Moses' day, you could see Numbers 16 for that, who went out the same way, and not surprisingly, it was for roughly the same reason, challenging God's anointed and attempting to usurp his authority. The deceitful nature of the Antichrist's charade was not hidden from David.
He has put forth his hands against those who were at peace with him. He has broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, but they were drawn swords. Psalm 55, 8-15, and 20 and 21.
Lest you come to the conclusion that the Jews are overreacting to a simple broken covenant, one among thousands that have been breached by nations large and small since the dawn of diplomacy, listen to the words of Yahshua.
For then there will be great tribulation, such has not been seen since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened.
As bad as things have gotten in the past, they are nothing compared with what's coming. And it's all because Satan wanted to be like God, and because Satan's man wanted to be accepted as the Messiah. Well has Yahweh commanded, you shall not covet.
Then if anyone says to you, Look, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe it.
Luke reports it like this.
They will say to you, Look here, or look there. Do not go after them, or follow them. Luke 17:23. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise, and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, Look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or, Look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Matthew 24:21-27.
Nobody will be able to say they weren't warned. When the tribulation gets underway, and trust me, you'll know if you're there, then it doesn't matter how slick a performance the wannabe Messiah puts on. Don't believe him. Even if he's got a statue that miraculously comes to life and demands your obedience, tell him to go to... Well, his final destination is already determined, but don't follow him. The real Messiah won't be found preaching in the wilderness like John the Baptist, nor will he be seen planning his world-conquering strategies in a palace in Jerusalem. His arrival will be so sudden you won't even be able to see it. Ready or not. This same period of time was described to Daniel.
At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Daniel 12:1.
Good news, bad news again. The worst period of trouble in the history of man is predicted, a time so bad that the archangel himself has to be brought in to save Israel's bacon, so to speak. Michael is identified in Jude 9 as the angel who had to contend with Satan over the body of Moses. He's also the one seen in command of the angelic armies that threw Satan and his demonic host out of heaven in Revelation 12:7-8. In other words, Michael is no lightweight. He's probably the mightiest angel there is, which explains why Yahweh has him standing watch over the sons of Daniel's people, in other words, the Jews. The good news here is easily missed. Yes, it says that Daniel's people
shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book.
And that's something that every Christian counts on, although we all know that physical death is part of the journey. But the context here is earthly tribulation, not heaven versus hell. We're talking about bodies, not souls. This seems to mean that the redeemed Jews will all, give us a speculation factor of 3, make it through the tribulation and into the millennium, despite the Antichrist's efforts to kill them. We saw in a previous chapter how the woman, Israel, fled from the dragon into the wilderness, who sent a flood after her that was swallowed by the earth. That's in Revelation 12:13-17. This is a confirmation of the truth related there. John and Daniel often seem to see the same things from different angles. We also saw how the 144,000 Israelite messengers would be sealed from harm during this time. These Jews who are found written in the book are the very ones to whom the 144,000 have been ministering. Apparently being sealed by Yahweh can be catching. After a few words about resurrected souls, something we'll get to in due time, Daniel goes on to write,
Then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood 2 others, one on this river bank, and the other on that river bank. And one said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, How long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the set-apart people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished. Although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, My Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Daniel 12:5-9.
Daniel's encounter with these angels, the vision starts way back in chapter 10, was so terrifying he had to be resuscitated before he could receive the message. And even then, he freely admits that he didn't have a clue as to what it meant. But he was a faithful servant of God and wrote down what he had seen and heard, so that we living at the time of the end, for whom the message was intended, could understand. Here we see, again, that the last 3.5 years will be a time when the power of the set-apart people will be completely shattered. I believe that the angel is referring to Israel here, not the church, that is, the new Laodicean believers, because Christ promised that the gates of hell would not prevail against his ecclesia. It's true that the Antichrist will be making war with the rest of Israel's offspring during this last 3.5 years, with more than a little success. The church, however, because she is empowered and indwelled by the Holy Spirit, is never powerless to defend herself, although she must always be on guard against Satan's wiles. But the temporal power of Israel, that to which Daniel is referring here, is said to be completely shattered. Were it not for the miraculous provision of Yahweh as she flees to the wilderness, the Antichrist would track down and kill every last Jew on the planet. Why, we must ask ourselves, has Yahweh arranged it like this? Or, at the very least, allowed it to happen like this? Why must Israel be rendered completely incapable of helping herself? It's something that every Christian should know, that in reality we are all completely incapable of helping ourselves. Israel, like the rest of us, must be broken completely of her self-reliance, her intrepid, inbred stubbornness, her pride. Israelis are so used to taking on the whole world single-handedly and winning that it's easy for them to miss the hand of God guiding their destiny. Now, because Yahweh loves them so much, he's going to the trouble of letting them see just how vulnerable they would really be without his protection. They will be graphically reminded of Yahweh's sanctuary, of course, when he destroys the armies of Gog. His provision will be fragrantly obvious to them as they spend 7 months cleaning up the rotting carnage. Few bullet wounds, no shrapnel, just millions upon millions of dead soldiers struck by lightning, burned with brimstone, poisoned with the biochemical weapons they brought in with them, crushed by hail, drowned in floods, and buried under the rubble of the biggest earthquake anybody could remember. But it's a significant leap from the surprise and relief that will inevitably flow from such an experience to relying on Yahweh the way a small child relies upon his father. The crisis of conscience will occur with the grand unveiling of the Antichrist's satanic agenda, the abomination of desolation. At this time, precisely 1,230 days into the tribulation, he will apparently, give us a speculation factor of 4, set a 30-day deadline. Within that window, all residents of Israel must pledge their loyalty to the Antichrist's one-world government, an act which openly aligns the inductee with Lucifer by bowing to the image of the beast that the false prophet has erected, or installed, or downloaded, as the case may be, the image animated by Satan's spirit. They must also receive the mark of the beast in their right hands or their foreheads.